know where it goes. It goes into this phantasmagorical perception of where we're going or what we can possibly do, and it has nothing to do with the facts of our origin or the facts of our construction. I mean, spiritual makes human beings special and magical and chasing rainbows instead of what we are, which is eccentric slugs. I mean, we're, you know, we are at the core fucking bugs.
Well, my question to Pyro, no, wait, well, Pyro, Pyro, my question to you would be like, where do you go from, where do you go from spiritual? Like, I think if you're going to be spiritual, you have to presuppose everything that you're going to be spiritual about. I mean, you can't just lay back and go, oh, I'm going to be spiritual about Jesus Christ because I'm spiritual, or I'm going to believe in this or that or whatever else. I mean, seriously, philosophized or psychologically, if you're going to say, yeah, I'm going to be spiritual, what the fuck are you going to be spiritual about? You're going to be spiritual about something that you already think that somebody else already drove into your head about Christianity or Judaism or Muslim or Islamism or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I mean, you know, you just don't lay back and go, hey, I'm going to be spiritual, and I'm going to, you know, think about what? What are you going to think about if you just want to be spiritual? Nothing. It's indoctrinated into you from some other bullshit fucking place. You just don't sit back and go, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to be spiritual now, and what am I going to be spiritual about? Well, you're going to be spiritual about Christianity. Yeah, because it was driven into you. The whole argument is actually stupid. It's illogical, and it's not even worthy to talk about. Honestly, and I'm not trying to, you know, down talk you, but I mean, the whole thing is complete bullshit.
That question is, I am saying there's a similarity between a spiritual as it's a type of experience and other types of experience. So like lustful experiences. It's like the question, are you going to be lustful? The thoughts come to you that are spiritual and feeling on their own, just like lustful thoughts come to you. And the question is only how you're going to react to them. Are you going to deny them and maybe pretend, no, I'm not lustful, I'm perfect because I'm a preacher, and so just let that stuff bottle up? That's one way to handle ideas like that. If you think spirituality is entirely an illusion, if you think spirituality is entirely illusion and there is no spiritual experiences, then you might be prone to do that.
But it's exactly the opposite problem. I mean, like I said, if we're going to open the door to spirituality, I can make you feel spiritual, your psychology, when you look at a dog's anus. I can make a spiritual feeling take place inside of you. Okay? That's the fact of the matter is we have people right now who have spiritual feelings about doing hideous things. They've made it spiritual. Jeffrey Dahmer was spiritually, he was conducting a spiritual thing. I mean, he was very
when
I finally eat their fucking liver, when I finally chew on their fucking liver, that was like the orgasmic spiritual moment, because now he totally owns them.
And you think that really was?
I think it's the same thing. When you endorse one, you endorse the other, because every fucktard has a different leprechaun they're going to chase. Some guy's going to be leprechauns. The other guy's going to be some other fairy tale figure. I'm going to be Thor, the thunder god, and I'm going to feel like Thor, or whatever we're going to identify with. Lion King. I could be the Lion King. I could be taking the Lion King energy. And that could be the focus of. It's just a bunch of bullshit, Pyro. And it's dangerous bullshit. It is dangerous. Well, what do you think spirituality is completely embraced in and completely covered with mythology? I mean, everybody who's spiritual is full of mythology.
Well, that's all bullshit. I mean, it's like, I used the example of lust so that you'll understand there's the positive and negatives. You can't totally deny a feeling just because there's been a lot of negatives from this feeling. You have to learn how to have a healthy version. Why do you need to call lust?
We have a perfectly good word for lust. It's called lust. You don't need to call it anything else. You don't need to call it spiritual lust. It's just fucking lust.
I'm not.
Well, you are. You're saying that you're going to get spiritual about your shit, and somebody else is going to get spiritual about their shit, and somebody else gets spiritual about their shit, and they're all legitimate philosophies. They're not philosophy.
I did not say they're all legitimate.
They're personal ways of interacting in the world, but they don't have anything to do with fucking philosophy. Spiritual is a loaded word. I mean, if you're gonna play with it, you gotta do better. You gotta be more explicit in that you're playing with it in a metaphorical, human psychology way, and not in a philosophical way.
It is philosophical.
Gary, you compound my point. I mean, if you are spiritual, you have something that you're thinking about, that you already presuppose that there's something, whether it's whatever religion or something else. I mean, you just don't become spiritual. I mean, you're thinking about something.
Well, it's always tied to a mythology. There's very few people who get spiritual about lust, Pyro. Most people get spiritual or getting spiritual about some theory that they are the fucking reincarnation of Cleopatra's lesbian lover. That's what most people are getting spiritual about.
Most people do not know real spirituality. That's what I think. So just because they say,
well, then why don't you start your video by saying most of you fucktards don't know what the word spirituality means, so this fucking conversation won't relate to anything you're fucking believing about yourself. This is about a completely different subject having nothing to do with spirituality. I'm just going to use your spirituality word because I have my own definition of it and I want to use it. I mean, that's kind of a stupid way to start a video.
Because that's stupid. Because what I do in my videos on spirituality is I talk exactly about what I want to talk about. Spiritual experiences. People, no matter what they think the word spiritual means, can tell me what experiences they have that they would characterize as spiritual. And if you do that and you look at those experiences, you see some interesting patterns, and that's a fact. That's just a fact.
Yeah, right. So why don't we just come up with another word? We'll come up with another word for neuroses and another word for delusion, and we'll just change the fucking vocabulary entirely and pretend none of these words have to mean anything. We know what spirituality is tied to.
Are you saying you think all those experiences are neurotic, hallucinatory experiences? There are no genuine...
They're contrivances. They're psychological contrivances. They're all related to the psychology that was required to keep us a fucking survival organism in our environment. They're not from some magic source. They're from an evolutionary source.
That's what I'm saying. They're from an evolutionary source, just like
right,
lust
but that's
and
not what you said
feelings.
in your fucking. That's not what you said in your video. Okay?
That is what I say in my videos. You just take so long time for you to get it.
No, I'm sorry. It's not what you said. You didn't say.
That is what I said. I've been saying it for 3 years.
It's just fucktarded psychology, contrived by a DNA molecule to make us more capable of surviving the life we had to live. Period. It has nothing to do with the goddamn truth.
All psychology is fucktarded.
Yes, it is. Of course it is. Well, of course, because you believe there's a point in surviving merely because surviving is the goal. You would justify a life that did nothing but survive because you think survival is a value in and of itself. You think a rock is better off being a human than being a rock. Well, I don't think it's an oxymoron. I think it's incredibly important. You think matter is deprived if it doesn't have the benefit of being configured into a fucking human being.
Can't really be deprived. There's nothing to deprive. But the thing is, nothing but survival. Survival is by definition whatever we do. That's all of our survival. So what is there besides that? Ever.
Well, I don't know what you're even saying. What the equation is, we should do what the DNA molecule says, which is we should survive. I have no interest in propagating. I have no passion for it personally. So my psychology is completely uninterested in seeing a little fucking baby. I don't want to see my wife pregnant. I don't want to see any of it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to be near any part of it psychologically. I'm completely uninterested in giving a fuck about a next generation. So, I mean, if I was the psychology that lived on planet Earth, there would be no more human